Welcome, everybody, to the LCCC round number 2. You are in Garrick's Lorcana layer, and I am super excited to get into this round 2 match. I am casting the second Tim match of my career, but this will be a first time looking at a Mo Shamblin match and being able to break that down live for you guys. In Garrick's Lorcana layer today, we have the one and only TFM Dan. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks for having me today. I'm super excited to call this one.
Yeah, I am as well. So let's go ahead and just jump right into it. What do you say? Let's take a look at the players here. We are going to start off with Mo Shamblin. Tell us a little bit about Mo.
I mean, Mo's great. He has he's a world's qualified player. He's very innovative, I think, and I think you
Yeah.
see a lot of his lists kind of like come out and be quite not what people think will be successful. And Mo has always found a way to be successful with them. So it's always nice to see a player like that kind of stand out.
Yeah, Mo is definitely one of those very, very unique players that is able to bring all sorts of unique decks to the game and succeed at a high level with them. And
Right.
speaking of his decks, why don't we take a look at it real quick? I have it up on the screen, and your team, that is Team Forbidden Mountain, has a ton of experience with this sort of Baja Blast, Emerald Sapphire type list. Why don't you break this list down for us? Tell us where you think it succeeds. Do you think Bend to My Will and Clarabelle is something that you can do and do successfully in this current meta?
I think so. I think the interesting thing about Mo here is that he's trying very hard to accomplish everything. It's very much like a toolbox deck of just like I'm gonna find the cards I need in the matchups that I want to, and hopefully I can be successful with them because it's very difficult, to play Ink Geyser, Bend My Will, and Under the Sea. In some cases, they're kind of like all built for different decks, or you would just tailor the Baja Blast deck to be good into a particular like portion of the metagame. But Mo's like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't care about that. I'm just gonna like play them all, and I'm always gonna have what I want. that's that's my best interpretation of what he's trying to do here because it's very difficult to kind of get everything in here. And you can see it's only one Bend to My Will. It's only two Under the Seas, so he's not hyper committed, but it's very interesting to see how you can kind of toolbox this deck depending on what you're going against, and position yourself to kind of just be like, yep, we'll just have it when we need it.
Yeah, for sure. And taking a look at Tim's deck, we have something I guess that's a little bit more standard these days, and that is that Sapphire Steel list. There are a couple of interesting notes in here, however. We do have the Smee, but we don't have any 5-drop Cogsworth. We've dropped 2 of the big Tamatoa, so we're only running 2 of that. And in its place, it looks like we have 2 of the McDuck Manors here, as well as we have the cannons, we have the Shield of Arendelle, so we're running a ton of different items, not to mention that Lucky Dime. All of that, of course, goes so well with the Scrooge McDuck that you can get into play for free, as well as the Hiram, the Tamatoas, the Bells, yada, yada, yada. Everybody knows how it works at this point. All of these cards are crazy, cracked out, but it looks like Tim has a very interesting mix here, going with the SME, going with these higher end cards, and kind of making a mix of the 2 decks. What do you medium, or do you think there's a little bit too much going on here?
No, I mean, I think I get it, right? I think 12 one cost items is very key. Bell on one is really good, and we just don't want to give our chance to not have it. I think the other thing that stands out to me is the Azerite Seas, right? I don't think most of these lists actually play Sail the Azerite Sea, or they're not as common. But we're committed even to instead of playing Tipo, we still have Sail the Azerite Sea, so still kind of have the option that when we want to, we can ramp on two, which is very nice.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like the players are actually ready to go. So I am going to get this up for us, and hopefully the players will be able to start here. Let me just switch over a couple things. We're kind of rushing through here just because the other game is going a little long. Just want to make sure that everything works how we want it to for everybody. So give me just 1 second here.
Yeah, it's looking we're already in mulligans potentially.
Yeah. You can go ahead and start talking about that while I
Okay.
make this work for us.
All right. So I'm not positive who is going first yet. Just big shout out to Mo with the enchanted Clarabelle, beautiful enchanted, one of my favorites. Um, and it looks like maybe we are post mulligan at this point because I don't see anyone like making any choices, but it's hard to say. I kind of like clicked on as we were figuring out we were getting yelled at by Mr. Phil, I believe. So, but it's okay. We're gonna manage it. We'll walk through it and we'll make sure everything's up for you guys to see. Okay, so Theo's taking a 3-card mulligan. He's keeping his bell and popsicle and a high rim along with a fishbone quill. So we already have kind of the early game established there, which is great. It's also possible that since he announced first, I'm assuming that Theo must have won the die roll. Oh no, we're getting a reconnect. We're getting yelled at. I know the other night I was having a bit of a tough time watching some of these stream games. I was like, oh no, I was like, it keeps not working. Hopefully we're a little more stable tonight.
Yeah, they are getting us back into that, so we should not miss anything here. We're going to get us right back into the action, and we should be good to go here.
So it looks like so far, or actually no, he was hiding the Tipo. This looks like a perfect hand for Mo, if I'm being honest. Has the turn 2 Tipo, has double muses, so he's kind of definitely going the direction that he wants to be to kind of maintain board position early. I will be interested to say, this is a matchup I haven't particularly tested too much recently. I'm curious what route Mo thinks that this deck needs to be successful in this matchup. Because, like I said, we have Bend to My Will, we have Under the Sea, and of course we have Ink Geyser. So I'm curious, where's he going to end up and what strategy he's going to shoot for.
Yeah, I'm definitely curious to see how that Under the Sea ends up working in this matchup, just because in the Sapphire Steel list, there's not a ton of things that are going to be hit by that particular card.
Yeah, it'll definitely be in comparison with the Sapphire Coils, right? Like, that's the big takeaway.
Yeah. And he is running 3 of these Sapphire Coils there. So that's going to be something that's going to be really, really important to get down. And then he also has a bunch of different ways to ink multiple times in a turn. He's got the Sail the Azurite Sea. He's got the How Far I'll Go. He's got the Tipo. So that is something that he can potentially set up. But without that Sapphire Coil, it's probably just going to be a dead card in hand, talking about the Under the Sea, of course, as Tim does get the turn 1 Fortisphere in to the bell.
Yep, definitely part of the plan, right?
Yeah.
When you play 12 1-drop items, the whole point is to find bell. So, and it's very good early on. This has the ability. You can also see there he has a Storm Rage on already. So this is kind of just has the ability to quest 1/1 and then shoot down a Tipo on 2 and just like really keep the pressure against Mo for sure.
Yep, no 1-drop on the side of Mo as we kick it on back over to Tim.
Yeah, there's
here.
actually only Popsicle in the deck for Mo, so it's not it's not something he's too concerned with. Oh, we've even found a Sail the Azurite Sea on turn 2. It's actually kind of funny. There's not too many like really good options for Strength of a Raging Fire, right? On Tim's side.
Yeah.
Because the muses are so protected early on. So this is a card that, could probably be good later, but right now, wow. Very interesting to see that he took 2 at his own bell there. Huh. I guess he really didn't want to ink any of these cards.
Yeah, I mean, had a ton of great options in his hand. He also has the opportunity here to put out another bell for free, getting rid of the Fortisphere, of course. That Popsicle can be used to heal up his other bell, but like you were saying, the strength of a Raging Fire, he's going to need a lot of characters on the board to get any sort of value on that. I mean, there's not that many characters in Mo's list. You have Tipo,
Yeah.
probably don't want to use it on that. The Muses can't use it on that. You have Tala, which takes 3, okay? But then you have Hiram and you have Clarabelle, each with 6
6. Yeah.
willpower. So the odds of getting 6
Big
out
butts.
for Tim is not very likely, as the Tipo comes down for Mo and he passes on back.
Yeah, very fortunate. He was able to draw the second Storm Rage on here. I mean, that just feels so good
Yeah.
in this position because next turn, we were setting up a potential play Muses Sing Heffalumps, so that would have been great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Heffalumps and Woozles is a song. It is not just an action, a classic song from the Winnie the Pooh franchise. But yeah, Tipo can sing it and make good use of that, potentially bouncing a character back to
It
hand.
might have. He honestly, he might even bounce his own Tipo.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just turn a quest off, bounce the Tipo back, and then have the ability to just re-ink the Tipo.
Yep, re-ink the Tipo or redeploy the Tipo to ink something
Yeah.
else. But right now, we are
Pete,
sailing.
I will say Pete is one of the more dangerous cards in this matchup for sure. A lot of what you're doing is trying to set up these great action turns,
Mm-hmm.
and Pete is just like, nah, you can't do that. Although right now we don't care, right? We're just double inking, gonna set up this Hiram for next turn for sure.
Yeah, all these actions, all these songs in concert with things like the Muses, and if you have a Sapphire Coil down, can be really deadly for a lot of decks. The Muses can basically control the board and never let anything quest. So, like you said, Pete, very valuable, but goes into the Inkwell for Tim, doesn't need it right this second, does have the Hiram, and doesn't have a lot of pressure on him. I mean, it's not like the Muses are bouncing any of these bells back.
No, very likely it'll just probably bounce the Hiram back next turn unless he finds, I don't think there's any answer to the Muses as long as it's straight up. I don't think there's any way that he can ever interact with this card, if I remember correctly. So it's very much, he's going to be at the whim of this Muse and the Sapphire Coil next turn. But it's nice here because you can kind of see just still being aggressive. Oh man, we drew two two Scrooges in a row, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah, the double Scrooge with no items on board. That would have been nice if he had all of his Fortispheres and Popsicles out, but he does have the Tamatoa to potentially get those back here in short order and potentially get a Scrooge out for free. It doesn't take much, especially if the Tamatoa is able to get a quest off that puts another item into play for free, not to mention the 2 you got back from the discard pile into your hand when he comes into play. I mean, the Tamatoa just having that many abilities, questing for 2, only costing 6, being inkable, it's no wonder why it's one of the best cards in the game immediately at the beginning of this meta. And on Mo's side, he's got a lot to think about here. He has the opportunity to get the Fishbone Quill down. He has the opportunity to get the Sapphire Coil down. But I think, honestly, he would love to have some different options in his hand to sort of deal with this board a little bit better. He does have the ability to bounce the Hiram back to hand if Tim doesn't have anything else to get value with the Hiram, like a Popsicle or a Fortisphere, then that could be okay. But then you always got to think of the Tamatoa being in hand, which will bring those items back. It'll keep the Hiram safe, who can just immediately get value back right after that. So Mo's got a lot of tough decisions here, and yeah, he makes the decision to look for better options because he did not have a ton of great ones, at least I don't think, in his hand to deal with the board at this current moment.
Yeah, I mean, even just a simple turn of like play a coil, ink, and then play a Heffalumps, prevent one of the bells from questing, and then bouncing a Hiram. It would have been an okay turn to slow down the draw potential from Hiram,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think it would have been the worst. But visioning here, kind of figuring out like, hey, how do I get the most out of my muses? I think is definitely a pretty safe decision. It'll be interesting to see if he actually, it looks like he's eyeing up to ink this muses, um, which is probably fair in this matchup. I doubt we need more than one unless we're gonna do some really silly things with it.
Yeah, it does opt to ink it and puts the Fishbone Quill onto the board. I think he's trying to potentially dump this hand out, get the Clarabelle out, and start drawing some cards. You got to think, going against something like Sapphire Steel, who basically can draw infinite cards once that engine gets online, you can make really good use of this Clarabelle, and Clarabelle doesn't go down to Zeus. It would take 6 characters to strength her off of the board, so she's very resilient into these steel decks. They don't have a ton to get rid of her.
Very fair. Yeah, I mean, she's huge.
Yeah.
It's one of her best perks for sure.
As we get into another Hiram here for Tim.
Yeah. I always say not much to do with it right now. We've kind of burned all our popsicles, but we do have this really sweet Tamatoa that just gets to come into play and get them all back. It's so much fun.
Yeah, for sure. And next turn, that Clarabelle could be deployed. It is something Tim has to think about. If he plays this Tamatoa and brings 2 things back into his hand,
yeah,
that just makes the Clarabelle that much juicier. And maybe he is thinking about that. Opts for the Scrooge instead, and we take a look here. There is a Fortisphere available for Tim.
And then to note, an 8-cost Tamatoa going to the bottom, and we have, if we saw from the deck list, there's only 2 of those in the list, so that is a potential win con kind of down. Very interesting. He chose not to take the Fortisphere there.
Yeah, great points all around. Sends the Fortisphere to the bottom, and also does send that Tamatoa, and he's only got the 2, like you said, so 1 left potentially for a big lore gain in 1 turn. But I think maybe leaving the Fortisphere alone is him just thinking, okay, next turn Clarabelle's going to come down. I don't want anything in my hands.
Yep. I think it's a very heads-up play there. Honestly, very, very impressive, because I don't think many players are going to not take the Fortisphere there. But understanding the matchup, understanding I really just need stats in play. I need characters that Muses cannot interact with, and that's exactly what we did by putting down Scrooge and Smee.
Yeah, a 3 lore potential next turn added on to the Bells and the Hiram that you already have on board. Just put pressure onto this deck and make them deal with everything that you have. And it's not easy, like we mentioned, for this deck to deal with all that stuff, especially not with the Sapphire Coil out on the board. There's not much you can do with all these big statted characters.
Yeah. Even here, like, this is a decision, Coil, I feel it just can't be inked, right? Because it's going to be one of the only ways for him to get out of this, particular board position easily. So, yeah, he has to kind of keep his hand and only draw 1 card off Clarabelle.
Yeah, which does not feel great. It gets a Heffalumps and Woozles, which could be used to potentially bounce something next turn with the Sapphire Coil.
Oh my. We just found the strength. Oh, that is brutal.
Yeah, this Clarabelle is about to take some knees and elbows and get sent to the discard pile real quick.
It's just so mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just very simple. Just turn my bell sideways, and yeah, that's like heartbreaking.
I mean, we were talking about it at the beginning of the match, like how difficult it's going to be to get rid of this Clarabelle, and he just gets rid of it immediately.
It's easy, guys, easy.
Yeah. I mean, when none of your characters get removed, and I mean, Tim played this beautifully, getting those 2 extra characters down last turn instead of the Tamatoa, using his ink as well as he possibly could, using his hand as well as he possibly could to prevent the Clarabelle value, and then also setting up the strength of a Raging Fire with the Tamatoa. It's just, this is some of the highest level play you're going to see in the world, which is why these players are both worlds qualified and are playing in the LCCC today.
So we have a Coil. Now we have to, this is so difficult, right? Because ideally, we can just play Heffalumps, say that the Crab can't quest, so we don't get a free dime, and then we just bounce Hiram, and we don't have to ink yet, because I don't think we want to ink Hiram if we can avoid it.
So the Tamatoa not able to quest on the next turn because of the Heffalumps.
Little guy. That's so good.
Yeah, he's on there. He's going to make sure that that Tamatoa does not go on a quest for next
Yeah.
turn. But yeah, Mo in a really tough situation here.
Yeah, this is just one of those where we're gonna have to establish the high rim. I was curious what he's doing here. I wanted to try and hear him. Okay, so we got to reduce McDuck's manner, which is pretty great. And, or I'm sorry, the Scrooge McDuck.
Mhm.
And then now with Hiram, we can potentially draw a song and we can bounce it, or well, that's an interesting draw with the You're Welcome, because now
Yeah.
the You're Welcome can actually get rid of 2 threats with the Muses. But the moment he does that, we also have to just understand that this Muses is never coming back to us.
Oh, for sure not. Yeah, that Muses is going to get removed any means necessary. When they turn sideways, you take the opportunity to get rid of warded characters. So that's definitely something Tim has to keep in mind. He also can just step on the gas a little bit if he wants to with the McDuck Manor next turn. I mean, look at the challenge potential on the side of Mo. It's basically non-existent. You put that down with a Pete, and you're going to guarantee yourself at least 4 lore, you got to think.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because it's just a very difficult moment to kind of get through, because you have to leverage, next turn, what can I do that would enable me to win the game? And cards like Under the Sea do come to mind here, depending on what um, Tim's play is.
Mhm.
Maybe that's like your turning point moment where you can utilize Coil and kind of like reestablish the board. But you can't also just say like, what if I don't draw that card? Then how do I play this turn? And it did look like he kind of leaned towards like, all right, you only have 5 lore, it's not winning the game, so go ahead and do your worst, right?
So we are going on over to Tim, who puts the Fortisphere down onto the board. Never feels bad to cycle real quick as we put, I think, the card he drew into the Inkwell, which is a Hiram. Yeah, he's got plenty of those. Doesn't necessarily need that. And we do see the Pete Manor come down, so I guess I'm in the head of Tim right now. But no, it was a great play. I mean, you just put the pressure on,
Yeah,
and there's not much that
I
that,
mean,
that most side of the board can do.
how does Mo answer 9 willpower, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's just not happening. That's just like non-existent.
Yeah, as he gets his own McDuck Manor, which is not great when you're behind. You need to answer like literally everything this turn. So I guess you go for the you're welcome, bounce something,
Right. That's my
or
guess.
just scoop it up and go to the next one.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just the writing on the wall, right?
Yeah.
And he played that so well, all the way down to just predicting the Clarabelle,
Mm-hmm.
and that is kind of a telltale sign of Mo's list, right? Like, when we looked at it, there's nothing better to be doing for 7 Inc. than playing Clarabelle and trying to recoup your losses.
Yeah.
And Tim was just like, nah, we're not even gonna let you do that.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly right. And the other option at that 7 slot is the bend of my will, the one of, right?
Right.
So he plays around both of the big bombs that could come down on 7 potentially by not
Right.
taking the Fortisphere, putting the 2 characters down. So, okay, go ahead and make me discard 2. I'm not really worried
Yeah.
about it. I'll probably
Yeah.
get this time back anyway. Or go ahead and draw 1 off your Clarabelle. I don't really
Yeah.
mind about that. Next turn, I'm going to top deck Strength of a Raging Fire, so it doesn't
I
really
mean,
matter.
that was like, honestly, the way that game folded out, it felt like, that's one of the ones you'll watch back. You'll be like, yeah, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
I mean, like when he let the Storm Rage on his own bell on turn 1, and then just drew the second one to still have the
Yeah.
answer. Like every single turn was just like, man, this was never gonna happen for me if I'm Mo.
Yeah, that definitely happens, and I feel like it's gonna happen a lot as these Sapphire Steel decks become more and more refined. Their top decks are just gonna get better and better and better. And even if it's not a great card off the top, it's probably like a Fortisphere or something that can cycle and get you something else. So
Right.
it's just complete and total value on the side of these Sapphire Steel players. Again, as they become more and more refined, these decks are just going to be harder and harder to beat. But we do have players in here that have taken games off of them, beaten them. So it's not impossible.
Yeah. Just sometimes improbable. Some games are going to look like that, and it's just not going to feel, anything you do. Under the Sea, and even in that board would have been, in most cases against normal decks, you're like, oh, and Under the Sea is my escape, but not the way that game played full out at all. As you can see here, we're going into mulligans. Tim already has the Fortisphere Bell combo.
Yeah.
Also has another popsicle and the Scrooge, so looking set up board stats pretty well there. Mo, on the other hand, sending a couple cards back here, but he does have, kind of already has the Muses, already has a Grandma Tala, has the How Far I'll Go. So being on the play is a much bigger deal for Mo in this game. Knowing that we can ramp on 2, if we really want to, we can also just ramp on 3. Generally speaking, the item deck is not pressuring too early, so I would probably prefer to go ramp, and then start playing the game. We'll see how Mo handles it.
Yeah, Tim sends back a Scrooge, a Pete, and a Let the Storm Rage On. Again, I think really heads up play by him. I think most people probably would have kept the Let the Storm Rage On because you already have the Bell combo, right? But you don't necessarily need it against this deck. The only thing you're ever going to use it on is the Tipo. And we saw in the first game, he didn't really care about the Tipo. He just happened to get the second Storm, so why not get rid of it? But he stormed his own Bell, as you mentioned. So he's not really worried about the Tipo. Just send the Storm back. You can draw it later to potentially cycle into something. You don't need it early on necessarily.
No, not at all. I agree. And it is nice. Looks like Mo probably got just about everything he wanted. I think this is going to be a really good opening for him. It's just going to be kind of where the game takes him after that is like kind of the hope. Ending up with a lucky dime here early. Probably not what Theo wants to see in this opening hand, but we make do, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you get a Tamatoa at any point and that can quest, it feels not bad. But the rest of the hand's pretty gas. So probably throw the Scrooge in the Inkwell, put one of these popsicles or the Fortisphere down, see what you get, and then maybe toss a Bell onto the board. A 3/3 that can sing. Never feels bad on turn 1.
It seems okay to me. I think that's always the plan. And I do think the Fortisphere is on average the card we get rid of the most, so it makes a lot of sense. Good start. I mean, it's basically what this deck is always trying to do on the play or the draw.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the Fortisphere is relevant. Sometimes the Bodyguard, you're able to make use of it when you quest with certain characters that you want to survive. But overall, the Popsicle is what most people tend to keep. As we see a Sail the Azurite Sea come down for Mo, he draws a second Hiram, goes ahead and inks that immediately and is going to pass it on over.
What's the most fun about the hand cams is that sometimes when you draw cards, you shuffle your hand and you're hiding the information of what you're going to ink and stuff like that. The hand cams, we don't even need to do that, guys. We just get to be like, he doesn't know what I'm inking. He has no clue.
Yeah,
because it was very clearly he just picked up the Hiram off the top and said, that's my ink return.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a great feature that Pavel has built in here for streamers and content creators that are able to hide their hands. And of course, for the LCCC, where we need to see the hand so we can give you the best analysis that we possibly can. But Tim just going all in here, getting the popsicles, the Fortispheres, everything that he wants.
He inked the second Scrooge there too, right? So we're not even trying to get free Scrooges. We don't even care.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he probably sees that, hey, I'm missing the one to really make it pop off. So we'll go with the Hiram line and just get rid of them and draw cards. Seems pretty good.
Yeah, so we do establish the Grandma Tala here. I think it's interesting. I think we do need to get characters in play. But I would have loved to go ramp. I think that this deck really excels when you can get away with that. And with only a Bell in play, I don't think it's too low value to kind of get that started.
Yeah, and
because worst comes to worst here is that he just somehow has an answer right to the Tala, and then you're not going to get the How Far I'll Go anyway. That would feel so bad.
What do you think of Mo getting rid of the Ink Geyser there, taking the Clarabelle? How do you feel about Ink Geyser in this list? Do you think it can do work against the Sapphire Steel?
I think that if you can get out far enough ahead, you can prevent them from having their like wombo combo turns. But as we saw last game, they don't even need to do that. Like if he just for the next next 3-4 turns, all he does is go character, character, character.
Yeah.
It's a little more difficult. I will say him already inking 2 Scrooges could have leaned into the concept of like, oh, maybe he's not, maybe that's not what his plan is this game. So
yeah,
it might have been an okay game, especially like if he plays Hiram on 4 and he's drawing a bunch of cards and you're ink geysering and kind of keeping him off resources. You can kind of just keep them out of the game in a way from being able to like really set up those the big Tomatos and stuff like that.
Yeah. The Hiram and the Dime goes in.
Yeah. And noted here, I think a lot of us want to see a Hiram to draw cards. I think Pete would be so good here, and it would really punish for not playing the How Far I'll Go. Oh, we played the fish. He already readied. I was like, wait a minute. I was like, what did I miss? I was like, hold on, there's something else in play I missed. Oh, okay, we're fine.
So we do see the Popsicle come into hand. So we can play the Popsicle, ink something, play the Hiram, draw 2. Can also sing How Far I'll Go this turn.
Mm-hmm.
Not too bad.
Listen, every time he draws a card, it's always a Hiram. So
yeah. Does he have 4 in there?
Yeah, so good note here. Play the Hiram, pop off, draw a couple cards. And, I think in any world where we're singing always How Far I'll Go, unless we really want to remove Bell.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, like, what's the worst that happened? He runs Bell into Grand Matala. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, got me.
We'll see what he decides to do, and he does go for it.
The old natural, How Far I'll Go. Looks like Coil and C. Considering we already have Under the Sea in our hand, look at that. We have Under Sea and Bend to My Will.
Yeah.
And next turn is a potential bend turn, right? We're already up to 6, so we could see a very early Bend to My Will and just say like, all right, if we do not play Hiram, if that's the world we live in where we don't get to see a Hiram, I think that like Bend to My Will probably be the best card for Mo next turn.
Yeah, for sure. Because he doesn't have anything on the board right now to obviously get rid of the Hiram and Bend to My Will. That would be the super nuts. Probably something that could happen later in the game with the amount of explosive ink that this deck can generate. But yeah, I think the Bend to My Will is not too bad if there's not a Hiram and a bunch of items, but there is a Hiram and a bunch of items.
There is a Hiram. So there goes the Bend to My Will plan.
Yeah. There goes
at least for now, because honestly, we have this setup, and him's not pressuring very much. Mm-hmm. So we probably have a couple turns to really set up like this crazy turn of Under the Sea and Bend to My Will. We might be able to do both of those in one turn. If like next turn is just all right, I'm going to play a Coil, I'm going to play a Muses, maybe I sing Heffalumps, and you could really set up like this turn where you kind of just like bounce everything back and slow down Tim in a big way. So it looks like we were just moving stuff around here for Tim, but we get to Fortisphere into the Inkwell, and then looks like we're just gonna banish the Tala. Nothing wrong with getting rid of the singers. Looks like he's deciding on damage. Okay. I think the die was just confusing some people here. So, pretty good establishment. I think Smee is a great character to play on that turn, which you have to love and respect for sure. So, Drew is C. Looks like we're going to start with Sapphire Coil, which is great. Great start for Sapphire Coil. And then the hardest choice might be what card are we inking. I think C is fine. Like just inking Sally Azerite C. Mm-hmm. Just a nice safe play. I guess the question is like what are like is it just like Smee here, right? Like the Bell is not that threatening anymore. So you get Amuses, and then this has the ability to bounce back Smee or Hiram. Either, I think, are fair choices. Oh, we're even singing it.
Yeah, with the coil down, has actions, has sort of the core, if you will, of his
Yeah.
deck kind of set up here, so can
Right.
start taking that control.
And it's pretty nice there because like now Hiram cannot quest to draw more cards. You know, like it's just hanging out.
He's just chilling.
Yeah, I
making
mean,
toys.
like it's like when you're a 1/6 and your ability is quest draw 2 and you can't quest, you feel really bad about it. I'm interested. Oh, is this are they tracking each other's hand? Is that what's going on? Oh, okay, that's what it is. Okay. I was curious what the die at the top was. I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought it was his turns at some point. I
Yeah,
wasn't
I was
quite
like, wait a
sure.
minute. I was like, we are not in turns. Hold on. I was like, how did that happen?
We've gone through time.
I was so confused.
We do get another Hiram, though, off the top, and it looks like Tim is thinking about slamming that onto the board and getting himself a couple more options. Does also have to be aware that the Bend to My Will is there if he ever doesn't have a Hiram.
I like the very quick end of the sly fishbone quill there. Ooh, this is such a good play, right? Turn off your actions, put a McDuck Manor into play, and just threatening the board, like kind of the game now on multiple fronts. And McDuck Manor, outside of your welcomes, there is not a very good way to answer this at all for Mo.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Tim was able to do in the last game, right? He had that Pete McDuck Manor turn that sort of just started pushing the gas down, and now he's only got one card in hand again. So you have the Bend to My Will, which is essentially a dead card in Mo's hand, the Claire Bell, which is going to draw 0. It is a 5/6 at quest for 2, but yeah, putting the Tala down I think is a right play. Let's get a couple more options and see what we can do here. Here's the Ink Geyser, which again is not too great. You don't want to give all those cards back to Tim at this point with only one in hand. So what do you think he should go for here?
Well, we can't play any actions. So there's also the problem of like this turn, if we could play actions, utilizing Tipo to ink twice to -3, 2 characters, and then we could have sung Under the Sea and then just wipe the board. That would have been a great turn. But Pete Games Referee doesn't let anyone have any fun. So because of that, now you actually have to like really think about the line of, do I just not ink this turn? Because I know that I need to have a really strong next turn. And I think that that's kind of where we're going now, is like the rest of our turn is kind of mediocre. You're not going to quest with Hiram to blow up Sapphire Coil because that's going to be your way to get out of this.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those where now you're just stuck. And that is exactly what Pete does on several turns in this game. But like on this turn in particular, it was so very strong.
Yeah, if he can chain himself into another Pete, that would be absolutely insane. But like you were saying, he's got so many options in his hand that require him to play actions, to play songs. If he was able to Heffalumps again on this turn and stop the Hiram from refilling his hand, like how great would that be? Not to mention like the play of just getting rid of everything, But
yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like there's 20 characters. Oh man, we found another Pete. Jeez. There's 20 characters in Mo's deck, which means 40 other cards are not characters.
Yeah.
So a card like Pete is very much shutting down very big turns. So I think on average for whenever there's more than 3 cards in the hand, if I'm Tim, I'm probably just assuming that half of them will always be actions. So that's definitely part of the problem, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to think if you are on Tim's side, and he agrees with you. I mean, he's been playing that way in both matches thus far, putting the Pete down with a huge threat that he has to take care of, as we see another Pete come down with a Smee. So we're not getting under the seat again. My McDuck Manor is going to gain me an additional 2, and I'm going to quest with everything 2 turns in a row. You're not bouncing anything this turn.
Yeah, and we don't have the answer to McDuck Manor. Like, we're just not going to get to the characters. The second Muses, like, also doesn't really help in this position.
Yeah.
Um, the second Pete is just absolutely the worst card ever. It just feels like you're just going to get time walked 2 turns in a row where you're having a very mediocre turn.
Yeah.
And even now, like, I think you just put Clarabelle into play to have a character. You can still ink a card and, take out the Pete if you want. Or you can, I mean, we could like triple into the Hiram. I don't know if that's a line that we want to take, but you could at least say, all right, I'm going to ink minus your Pete or your Bell, whichever one you want to choose, and then run your run the Grand Matala into it to get like at least numb the pain. But it's pretty tough.
Yeah, if we're not challenging this turn, and again with the Sapphire Coil, it makes things more palatable. And with Tipo, I think maybe you can just get rid of that bend to my will at this point. But yeah, you can challenge a little bit more effectively this turn with that Sapphire Coil out there, and get some of this lore off of the board, as there is 9 being threatened on the side of Tim, which would take him up to 17, and you definitely don't want that to happen.
Yeah, so it does look like we're going for the double ink here, which is probably just setting up trades into a favorable manner. But it's obviously not the most ideal lines for Mo or what he wants to be doing at all, but it's kind of like what we have to do, right?
Yeah, unfortunately had to use that Tipo on this turn to make favorable challenges instead of using that Tipo in concert with the Under the Sea to just flat out get rid of stuff instead of challenge into it. So that feels kind of bad, but it's not the worst, like you said.
Yeah, it's more or less like it's another turn where, we're not answering McDuck Manor, which would have been the other reason why I would have been more favorable of just slamming Clarabelle here to get 5 strength into play. But, we do remember what happened last turn or last game where we played Clarabelle and we felt good about it, and then they just strength off the top. So I guess we can't just walk into strength also, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, strength would be so powerful with all the characters that Tim has on the board. I mean, Tim doesn't really have much in his hand right now, but the great thing about his board state is he has a card called Hiram Flaversham that can quest, get rid of that Fishbone Quill, and draw 2 additional cards. And then guess what? You got another Fishbone if you really want it. So
yeah, he's okay.
He's pretty good.
He's okay.
And I mean, Heffalumps and Woozles is a pretty great answer to him, but it's
not when you can't play it.
Yeah, it's not great when Pete exists in multiples in these steel decks.
Yeah, Pete is just Captain No Fun for sure.
Yeah,
it does look like we are trading into the Bell, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Marked by the cute little guy.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think that we do okay. So we do establish a second Muses here, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Mo would be happy if Tim decides to start trading into like Hiram and Muses. It probably would just be like a way to kind of gain conditional lore. But I don't know if Tim's going to fall for that.
Yeah. Here's the Tamatoa off the top. Can grab 2 of those items back and make the Hiram quest even more juicy. That way you get to keep your Fishbone on the board and you get to cycle even more, which feels pretty good. But I mean, the location is a big problem, but Mo's not in the worst situation here, especially if he finds something off the top like Sail or whatever, where he can double ink next turn. He can get rid of 3 characters with Under the Sea. Not too bad.
Man, what a good couple of draws there. So it looks like we are just going to slam down Tamatoa, pick up 2 more popsicles, kind of do what we want to do. I will say that this type of turn could end up pretty good for Mo.
Yeah,
because now we can just ink and kind of get rid of the 2 most powerful threats in play, which would be Tamatoa and Hiram. So that's definitely a big deal. But we still are staring down the McDuck Manor that's just consistently gaining 2 lore a turn there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We ironically do have 9 strength now. It would cost us 5 characters, but we do have 9 strength.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think that that's like also a really subtle thing for Tim to pick up on, right? Like, oh, he has 9 strength. I
Yeah.
got to get rid of one of these characters. So you might see one lore lost to take out of Muses, I would assume at the very least.
Yeah, you
But
could go with
maybe,
Pete or Bell in there and not feel too bad. I mean, you could even heal them up with a popsicle if you felt so inclined.
well, yeah, there's also a world where I don't think he's inked for regular this turn yet. So we could actually put a Shield of Arendelle into play,
Mm,
and then pop Arendelle to like give the Pete or the Bell resist, and then make a favorable trade that way to keep a character in play.
yeah.
Everyone forgets sometimes that we do actually utilize the resist one. Like it happens sometimes.
Yeah, the Shield of Arendelle is not there simply to be fodder for Hiram or Bell or Tamatoa. It's got a useful ability.
Every now and then.
He was thinking about inking the Scrooge there, really mulling over this turn. Does he want to keep the Scrooge? I think that's a pretty good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Put the shield out, like you said. Keep the Scrooge to have some threats in case your board gets wiped by an Under the Sea.
Ooh, we do it. We do it. We do the thing. Oh, this is even better, right? We can just, well, I guess we sacrifice 2 lore this way, but this gets the trade and then not take a conditional damage at the end of the turn either, which is nice.
Goes for the Hiram.
Oh, okay. Never mind. We're just going to take out Hiram. I'm cool with that. So there is like one card, I think, that if Mo could draw, it would be spectacular. And I think it's a second Sapphire Coil.
Yeah, second Sapphire Coil would be insane here.
Yeah, like second Sapphire Coil to kind of -2 2 different characters and then sing the Under the Sea would certainly be a way to turn this game around.
Yeah.
And it's even perfect because he has exactly 9 ink. So he can even play the coil. Oh, no, he wouldn't be able to ink anything. Never mind. That's sad. Oh, I guess technically he could pop, like he could bring his T-Bow back to his hand with the Under this. Oh, no, that's never going to work. No. Well, he drew it. Man.
There's the coil.
Yeah, I was hoping we could do like everything imaginable and then still be able to play Clarabelle, but I don't think that we can't live the total dream. So now it's just about like kind of evaluating what is necessary for us. And I think, getting Smee and getting Tamatoa out of the play is probably best. But, at the end of the day, we're still looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lore, even with that play. So I don't even know if it's good enough,
Yeah. I mean, the great thing about the tail end of Tim's turn there is how much he was able to actually put onto the board. He was able to get the Bell out with getting rid of one of the items, plus he has the Tamatoa and the McDuck. So yeah, you can get rid of a lot with Under the Sea, but look at how much is still left on the board. Like every lore counts in this matchup, not to mention he did keep the Scrooge in his hand because he foresaw something like this coming up. How do I get hosed? Like you got to think about this when you're playing the game. Like how do I lose? Do I play this Fortisphere or do I ink it, play the shield, and then have the Scrooge for later on? These are just the kinds of plays that you love to see, that you can dissect and learn from.
It's truly like the best reason to be watching these games.
Agreed.
These are top-notch level successful players across multiple tournaments, just showcasing some incredible skill. So you gotta love it, truly. All right, so we do get the ink.
Yep.
So now the question is, what is the biggest threats? I have to assume it's just lore, right? Like we just take the Tamatoa and the Smee. Unless he thinks, I guess we could trade, so maybe we just take Tamatoa and Bell, and then we trade Grandma Tala for the Smee, and then maybe we trade, we run Muses and Tipo into something, maybe that's the world we're living in. But instead, we're just going to sing.
Under the Sea. So the crab goes under the sea. That is what we call thematic, ladies and gentlemen.
So we got Hiram, and there should have been a third card, right?
Yeah. So Hiram, Smee, and
Tamatoa, he
Tamatoa,
targeted his own Grandma Tala. Okay, so one of the sapphire coils actually
Oh,
went onto
gotcha.
his own Tala, so he could play the Tala afterwards.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Makes sense. Yeah, it gives him an additional card in his hand, that additional option for this turn. We'll see what he finds.
I mean,
McDuck Manor.
Mother's Knows Best isn't bad. Takes a Smee off the board, takes some lore off the board. Potentially you could quest with Tipo and pick Tipo back up, if that's the play you're looking for as well. But even then, right? Like, we're still gonna untap, and he's still gonna gain 5 lore.
Yeah.
So and we're out of resources, right? Like, we have nothing left.
Yeah. Gotta think you gotta get some of this lore off the board and then start thinking about the McDuck Manor next turn. But not the worst turn in the world, considering what Mo is staring down. He was able to remove 3 threats off of the board. Of course, 1 went back to hand, but it's in the hand. It's going to take a while before it can start questing.
Yeah, I think Mo might have realized after the fact. I do think, what do we have? So we have 3, 8. Maybe he didn't have enough to replay, but it looked like after he made the decision that he was upset that he didn't quest the Tipo first. But yeah, we untap here. We gain 2 lore. We still have 3 lore in play. And we just have like Scrooge plus Smee to back it up. It seems very difficult for Mo to get out of this with literal 0 cards in hand.
Yeah, Strength of Raging Fire also not bad.
Lonely Stitch. Yeah, I think over the last couple turns, You're Welcome was just so necessary to numb the pain on McDuck's Manor, and we just couldn't find it.
Yep. Tim does find an item with the Scrooge here, sending a Bell, a Hiram, and I didn't quite catch the last card. I think maybe it was another McDuck Manor.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see what we decide to go with here. Does put the item down.
What's going on? Oh, it was the Bell. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I just got rid of the muses. That's cool.
And can also put the Smee down. Hey, might as well sing, clear the whole board.
Yeah. That's just is what it is, right, guys?
Yeah.
That's rough.
There's
I tried.
Shirt. I
tried. Yeah, that one's rough. Yeah, I mean, this deck's real good. I think we saw a really good display of how powerful the deck can be, even when it's.
What does he need here? Sail into Under the Sea? Maybe is good?
No.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he couldn't even do anything with Sail because he only has one hand.
You can't even ink,
Yeah. In a hypothetical world where he could ink and also have Under the Sea, but yeah, you're right. No cards.
He was doomed.
They're the Mauis.
They're the You're Welcomes.
Yeah.
Far too late for it to matter. Quite. I don't know. That's kind of, I think, how I didn't want to hope for this to happen. I wanted to see a little bit more back and forth, but just showcases how powerful this deck really is. And
yeah, for sure.
I feel that we didn't see some crazy dime turn.
No.
We didn't see anything insane at all out of Theo here, and he just dominated both of these games. And that's very scary to say.
Yeah, it's just consistent value generated turn after turn after turn. Whether it's getting out free Scrooges, which he didn't even do in either game, or getting back things with Tamatoa, or putting a Bell down and singing. You're just putting so much pressure on your opponent from a million different ways, not to mention, oh yeah, I have a 9 strength or a 9 willpower location that generates 2 lore turn. So it's just incredibly difficult to deal with a deck that basically does everything in the game really well. It removes characters, it stops you from playing stuff with Pete, it gains lore, it draws cards. It does everything, which is why it's the best deck.
Yeah, you nailed it right on the on the head there. It's very, very good. It's very, very powerful. I think it was funny. He put the You're Welcome on the table, and Tim's just like, yeah, what do you want?
The
Go ahead.
choice is yours.
And every part of me just wants to draw my own, like draw cards off my Sapphire Coil. I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, like we both know that that's not right, but it's like, how do we get out of this? So yeah, well, we get rid of we get rid of the 2 lore threat with 9 willpower to give our opponent 2 more cards, while they just have 6 lore in play. So
And it's also important to note that the You're Welcome shuffles the deck up, so everything that was put to the bottom by Scrooge or any of
Yeah.
his other cards now are like back in the mix. So if like a Tamatoa was ever sent to the bottom, that just gets shuffled up and maybe you draw it again. Same with like anything that's
Yeah.
put to the bottom of the deck, Lucky Dimes, whatever.
oh, looks like oh, he's back. Oh, look, that's a pretty good couple of cards.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I like stats, and not to mention, I will say the most casual thing that I was not paying attention to in this game is that Theo's just casually at 9 ink also.
Mhm.
like he's established this board of 7 characters now, and he just is like, yeah, go ahead,
Goes to 10.
be prepared in this ink. Yeah, we got it.
Can he pull out the Brent Mackay special?
Yeah, can we one time? Like, can we just let him have it?
Dual color cards, tricolor decks, why not?
Yeah, it looks like I think Theo just like failed to do the Scrooge trigger, and maybe they were giving it to him, but they're like, yeah, what's the point?
Oh,
Hey,
Heffalumps, we get another chance to
least-
see something.
At least Tamatoa can't quest next turn.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Something good.
Oh,
All right. Yeah.
Now if he 7 of those,
Yeah. If only Mother's Knows Best read, you can pay for this 1,000,000 times and do it 1,000,000 times. That would have been that'd have been cool. Not in the cards tonight for Baja Blast. And then there's a lot of people out there that I think are really hoping for someone to figure this out.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems really difficult, specifically in a world where this is a deck that you have to focus on. I just don't think you have the tools to really play well into this deck consistently.
Yeah, I agree. So let's hop into the call here with the players and have a quick interview. We are going to hop in there right now. Hello.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, can you hear us both? Dan, are you in here?
I am in here.
Okay.
Hello, guys.
Great. Thank you two so much for the match. It was super interesting, especially in the second game, where Mo had sort of assembled your engine. You were doing things. You had the Sapphire Coil out. You had the Muses on board, and you had the Clarabelle. You had the Bend to My Will. You had literally everything. You had the Heffalumps, but then you got hit with the double Pete. How much did you play test into the Sapphire Steel deck, and did you find that Pete was basically the card that did you in most of the time?
So that's a great point, and I will blame a little bit of metagaming here.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know who we were playing going into this round, but I knew I had a higher chance of hitting a non-steel deck because you saw that my round 1 list was a bit more tech for steel with the Kit Cloud Kickers and the Pete's. And so I was kind of saying, hey, let's get the run back against Red Blue with a little bit different of a deck list. And it didn't work out for me, but that comes with the risks here. Like you accept those. But yeah, basically I knew an aggressive start into a Pete, particularly an aggressive start that allowed him to play out his hand so I couldn't get advantage off the Clarabelle, would probably cook me with this particular build I started. I did test fairly, I would say I tested fairly favorably, but it definitely, I knew the lines that would roast me, and they were there.
Yeah, there was several times there where it felt like you had the ability and you were going to turn the corner and we could maybe finally see it. It just didn't pan out. It was like, I thought in game 1, Theo, you drew exceptionally well. He was able to finally establish the Clarabelle, and you were just off the
Yeah.
top strength.
Yeah.
Sorry, man. It was just, it felt like every single time Mo had a chance, you're like, no, you don't. Like, sorry, you don't get to play today.
Yeah.
I would like to bring to attention that my record with this deck in like tournaments is still fairly positive, but every time I get put on camera, it goes like this. It's the funniest thing.
Don't give up, Baja Blast believers. You heard it here from Mo. Do not give up.
True. Yeah, you'll definitely see it when you go to watch it back. That game one was just so brutal. He just every single time we're like, all right, well, if he doesn't draw this, and then he just draws it, and you're like, oh well, never mind. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no, you're okay. You're okay.
Yeah, I wanted to really point out, Theo. I thought your play in game one was absolutely exceptional. He was going to his turn where you knew he was going to go for Clarabelle. You played a Scrooge, and you decided not to take the Fortisphere. You were able to like get down to 2 cards, and you put yourself in a position that no matter what he was going to do, whether it was play Bend to My Will, whether it was play Clarabelle, like he was just not going to get a ton of value out of that. And I thought it was like just so very well played. Really, I can't praise it high enough. That's how good, how excited I was to see you kind of make those lines in game one. It was exceptional.
Yeah, I knew that the only way he had to come back is by giving him too many cards on Clarabelle. So at every point of the game, starting from the moment I was ahead on the board, I had to make him not draw any cards anymore. And if he doesn't have cards, he cannot play with his muses.
Yeah, and it's already difficult for him to do so in the matchup anyway, right? Like he has to have coils, he has to have he kind of has to have a whole engine going. But you taking those cards away and saying like, yeah, I'm not going to let you establish your engine. I thought it was so very well played.
Yeah,
he played fantastically, which is interesting to see when you bring a different deck. This Geyser deck's not a lot that people have a lot of familiarity with, but no, he played it perfectly.
Yeah, it was really great to see, and I mean on both ends for sure. Mo, it just didn't seem to be in the cards for you this time. But Theo, speaking of the color combination choice in the last LCCC, you went with something a little bit offbeat, a little bit off color, which was the Amber Sapphire sort of aggro strategy, which was really, really interesting to see. This time you went with the Sapphire Steel, something that I guess most people thought would be established as a very, very strong deck. But the great thing about Sapphire Steel is you can build it in about 20 different ways, and they're all pretty good. What was your thought process going into this one, deciding to go with Sapphire Steel over something else?
So one friend of mine is very a fan of Oswald, and I wanted to play the card for him. So I was forced to go on Sapphire, and Oswald is the best with Steel for sure. So on round 1, I played the deck I wanted to make him pleased and to have fun with that. It didn't go pretty well, and the beauty of Blue Steel is that probably I will play something completely different on next round.
Yeah.
Because you can do whatever you want with the color combination for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you can play it in that aggro way that we saw Jack Shadows and Harlan Sweet make that deck. Artabax has a great mid-range deck. You could play Wheel like Jonathan Lamb. You could play a version closer to what you have. You could play Oswald's. It seems like the options are never ending. On that topic of color choice, Mo, was there a specific reason you went with the Emerald Sapphire for this run? Is that something you're eyeing up as a potential pick for something like Worlds, or is it just a fun deck that you like to play and want to show off the power here while you have the spotlight?
I think a little bit of both. It's a very versatile deck, in that Ink Geyser is one of the craziest cards ever printed. I didn't get to showcase that, and I apologize to you, the crowd, that I didn't get to show it off too much. But it's definitely a fantastically powerful card. But in being in this particular color pairing means you have to find the right way to establish it.
Yeah.
And I think this deck's got a lot going for it into the current meta. You can fight items a lot better than any other deck. You can fight card advantage engines. Even just trading stuff with Sapphire Coil is definitely a valid way to come back into some games. I was debating between my top picks was blue red, purple steel, or this. And I have no regrets for bringing this. I've definitely spent a lot of time with this deck over the past couple weeks, and I've enjoyed it, and it's opened my eyes to a different way to play the game.
Yeah, Ink Geyser absolutely represents that. You get to this point in the game where your opponent it almost feels hopeless for them. So it would have been really nice to see that displayed and for everyone to kind of like really understand how powerful Ink Geyser can be. I just think that this matchup certainly it's a little more difficult to kind of get that going.
It definitely was not the one I was running to roll. I was like, okay, there's 2 blue steels in my bracket. Let's see. And I'm like, darn it.
Yeah. Sometimes it be like that.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
no,
Sorry, go ahead.
the format was very fun. Like the ability to switch decks. Like blue steel is a really cool one to pick because you can go very different routes. You can go Oswald, you can go the more tempo-ish builds, or you could go just straight off like aggro one day just to change it up. That's really fun.
Yeah, I like what the players and everybody involved. But Pavel made the final decision to allow all the players to switch their decks in between rounds, and I think it's great. It keeps things fresh, especially since this is a really long tournament, right? It helps everybody adjust to the meta, get some good playtesting in, and see what works and what doesn't. So I really love the deck changes, and it keeps everything fresh. I think it's going to keep people coming back to see what changes you've made for the next week. And like you mentioned, Mo, you can meta game a little bit. Sometimes it'll go in your favor, sometimes it might not, but there is the opportunity to sort of roll the dice and see if you can tech in a couple cards into a favorable matchup.
Absolutely.
On my side, I really think that one of the most interesting part of the tournament is to look at people who only change a few cards in their deck and to see what did they change and to try to understand why they made this modification. So, for example, looking at Moyen list or Kurt list, who made a slight modification, and while I was playtesting against Kurt's list on week 1, we felt like Lucifer was quite underwhelming, and it's interesting to see that he removed the card on week 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the power, right? Like you can, like obviously when you guys submitted these lists, you were still fresh to set 7 as well. And now that the way that the tournament is based and how it's kind of like a week or 2 for each round, it really does kind of fit for you guys for as players and for viewers to see how the deck will also evolve. It gives everyone an opportunity to kind of get that look into that mind that Theo was just saying. It was like, hey, like it's really cool to see how these players are kind of just innovating their own list through the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I love to see it. I'm absolutely in love with the LCCC. I think it's something that should continue, and I hope that it does. Because casting these games is such a pleasure. Being able to see the top players in the world and analyze their moves as best as I can. Thank goodness I had Dan here with me to help me through it. But it was an amazing experience. Thank you two so much. Would either of you like to take a moment, shout out anybody, any friends, playtesting partners, your social media links? We'll start with Theo, and then Mo can go.
Yeah, I would like to thank all my teammates who dedicate to play decks for my opponent, and sometimes they don't like decks they are playing, so they are still trying to put some efforts in it. So thanks a lot to them.
That's just to point that out real quick. It's got to be like more difficult, if your group is not a group that's focused on kind of what I would consider a pretty off meta deck, and now they got to figure it out for you so they can give you the best opportunity. They're like, man, I don't know what Mo's doing. This is crazy.
Does anyone ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, we are into off meta decks, so it's not a big problem on our part to test this kind of decks. But yeah,
Awesome. Mo?
Yeah, so first and foremost, shout out my wife, Mandy. It's so fun saying wife now. We got married last week. And it's a blast.
Congratulations.
Oh, congrats.
Thank you. I can hear her in there with my daughter right now, and I'm like, oh, thank you. But also my team, Team Infinity, everyone who's helped me practice this matchup and kind of learn the ins and outs of where to go with it with the deck I chose to bring for this round. Yeah, just really shout them out because putting up with my off meta choices that sometimes work out, sometimes not so much, is a challenge in its own.
Yeah.
And then on socials, I am at that Mo Kid on I think everything.
Yeah, and I have that link down below in the YouTube VOD, so anybody that wants to follow these players, check out the deck lists, follow me or follow Dan. All of that information is going to be below. But Dan, do you have any last questions for the players here before we let them go?
No, I think you guys played great. Very exceptional play. I think it was in the end. I really felt that game one was just like unwinnable. Every moment it was just like, all right, maybe no. So it was very tough. Game two, man, Pete Gaines referee is he's a great card, guys, and I think that in the end those two turns are so good. And they, if again even for Theo's side, like when you go back and you realize how powerful not only the first Pete was, but the second Pete, it was just you'd really turned off everything that Mo was working toward, and it drastically changed the outcourse of the game.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, awesome. Thank you two so much again for allowing us to cast your game. I want to say thank you to our judge team. Shout out to Phil, who was just in here. He's amazing. Shout out to Pavel. Thank you so much for putting this all together. Thank you, Dan, for joining me. For Garrick, for Theo, for Mo, for Dan, for Phil. Thank you for watching the LCCC, and we will see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.
Guys.
bye.
Bye.